Hey, it's Lin Eleoff from CoverYourAssetsOnline.com, and you're listening to the 360 Entrepreneur with Jan Ilunga.
This is episode 183, and today we talk about protecting your business. Here we go.
Welcome to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast, the show for entrepreneurs and small business owners who dream big and want to do bigger. Join some of the world's top entrepreneurs, internet marketers, and best-selling authors as they share their inspiring stories, their struggles, and give actionable tips that will help you build, grow, and promote your online business. Here's your host, Yanni Lunga.
Hey, what's up? Yanni Lunga here. New episode of the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. Throughout your entrepreneurial journey, you are focusing on many different things, and you do different things. To learn that, you may listen to podcasts such as this one, read books, buy online courses, read blog posts, whatever. And usually, I dare to say 9 times out of 10, if not even 10 times out of 10, you focus on quote-unquote sexy things, marketing, sales, how to start a podcast, and these kind of things. But that is not what we're going to do today. Today, we focus on something that is so critical and is yet overlooked by many entrepreneurs, even those who have been around for quite some time actually. And that's why this episode is a must listen. We're joined by Lin Eleoff from CoverYourAssetsOnline.com, and she has so much value and tips to share for practical things you can do to protect your business and assets. The show note page for today's episode is over at yanilunga.com/episode 183. So that's yanilunga.com/episode 183. All right, here is the interview with Lin Eleoff from CoverYourAssetsOnline.com. In this episode, we are joined by somebody who is really gonna help you understand what can really be considered the foundation of your business. And you'll get a grasp of what I'm telling you right now in just a second. She's an internet business lawyer whose mission is to show business owners just like you and I how to cover our assets online without having to spend a lot of money on legal fees. As the founder of CoverYourAssetsOnline.com, she created a do-it-yourself legal toolkit so that entrepreneurs can protect not only their business assets, but also their homes, their cars, and investments. She always says that one of the worst things we tell ourselves is, well, this will never happen to me. And then what happens? We are in trouble. But she's here to help us. I'm so excited to welcome on the show Lin Eleoff. Lin, how's it going?
It's going great, Jan. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure. And I said, Lin, you are somebody who helps entrepreneurs quite a lot, right?
Well, like you say, Jan, that you don't need to spend thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours before you can get your business up and running, right? And I say the same thing. I say that you don't need to spend thousands of dollars in legal fees in order to protect your online business. There is so much that you can do on your own to get things up and running and fill in those legal holes that most people have on their websites and in their online businesses. So I show them how to do it for a fraction of the cost. It's not even the price of what it would cost for most really good attorneys to hire them for 1 hour. So I really do believe that there is so much you can do yourself, and you must do it because, we're responsible business owners, right? And we want to protect not only our business, but we want to protect our personal assets, because one wrong move and it can all come crumbling down. And you do not want to expose your assets, your personal assets, to anything like that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with what you said, Lin. And I think before discussing some of the best practices, some of the things we can do, let's start talking about the big no-nos. So in your experience, what are some of the common mistakes you see entrepreneurs, small business owners make when it comes to their business, and not only their business, but really protecting their overall possessions?
I think one of the first things that entrepreneurs need to understand is that they need to limit reduce their liability. So that starts with 3 very basic documents that you need to put on your website. The first is a privacy policy. Now, the privacy policy is actually there to protect visitors to your website, and that is required by law. You must provide that information to visitors. And this doesn't mean you actually need to be selling anything. The moment you start asking someone for any personally identifiable information, and that includes their email address, you are required to let them know how you're going to store that information, whether it'll ever be shared, what security measures you have in place, and especially how they can remove their information if they want to. The second document that you need to have is a disclaimer. Now, the disclaimer protects you. The disclaimer limits your liability, and it tells people, hey, this is the information I provide on this website, but I'm not going to be liable for anything you do with that information if you misuse it or fail to use it in the way that I'm presenting it here. So the disclaimer on your website is so important. And then the third document that you need to have is a terms of use or terms and conditions. Those names are used interchangeably. And that lays out the rules for people who come to your website. And I think of your website as your playground, right? And it's your playground, your rules, and you need to let people know what the rules are. You need to give them notice. This is what you can do with the information I provide. This is what you can't do. This information is copyright protected. This is what's trademarked, and you're not allowed to share it with anyone without my permission. That's kind of, a synopsis of what those 3 documents are, but they are so powerful, and it is so important that you have them on your website and you not cut and paste from someone else's website. First of all, that's copyright infringement. and secondly, they need to be tailored to your website and the business that you're doing. And so when I'm looking at someone's documents, I really make sure that they are customized to what their business is. And in my do-it-yourself toolkit that you mentioned, I show people how they can do it themselves so that they're protected.
I love it. And you mentioned the do-it-yourself legal toolkit. Like in every episode, I'll link to that, to your site, coveryourassetsonline.com, and everything we discuss in this episode in the show notes so that is available there to be checked out. And thank you, Lin, for sharing those 3 important pages. So you said it, privacy policy, the disclaimer, and then the terms and conditions. And you touched on a very critical point that you said that every aspect of what we do has to be like a glove that fits our business. So it shouldn't just be something we see somebody having on their site and we're like, well, okay, I'm just going to copy and paste it, change, I don't know, the website name or the business name, and that's it. No, you said it. It's very important. And you touched on copyrights and trademark. And to make some clarification, just in case there is somebody joining us who isn't exactly sure what the difference is between the 2 terms, could you take a moment to tell us more about what copyright is and what trademark is and how the 2 differ from one another?
Absolutely. So copyright law protects original works of authorship. And now this is according to U.S. law, but of course this is common sense and common knowledge and practiced around the world. So copyright protects your website content, for example, your blog posts, in general, books, movies, songs, lyrics, paintings, that sort of thing, the images that you may create for your website. That's all copyright law. And incidentally, you want to be sure that you aren't infringing on someone else's copyright by using images that are from Google or on someone else's website. Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean that it's free for you to use. That is copyright protected, and you must have permission to use that content And just giving attribution isn't enough. You can't say, oh, well, I'll just say that the source is from, from Jan's website and therefore it's cool. No, it's not. You must have permission or you could get in trouble. That's copyright. Now, trademark is different. It protects things that identify a business or a brand, such as the name of the business, the tagline, the logo or symbols or anything that makes it clear to the consumer or the reader that this is your brand. It's identified with these words or with these symbols or this slogan. What that does is it lets the consumer know the source of the goods. So, of course, when you see that Nike swoosh, I don't even have to say Nike. I just have to say swoosh, and you know exactly what I mean, as opposed to the 3 stripes, and you know that's Adidas. So when you're considering trademarking your website or your business name or your products and services, it's not enough to just say, oh, nobody else is using this name. You have to make sure that that name that you're choosing to use isn't so similar to another company's name, even if the words are different or the logo is a little bit different. As soon as there is any quote unquote likelihood of confusion, then you are walking into dangerous territory of trademark infringement. So that's why it's so important to do your homework. Too many people have lost so much money because they think, oh, this is a cool name. I'm going to use this for my product. And then they put it up. And then the next thing you know, they've got a cease and desist letter saying, you owe us a whole bunch of money because we've already trademarked that. I mean, that happened to someone recently. He set up his whole business, or at least his signature product, and he was so excited about it. And after maybe a week or two, and word gets around, and he gets slapped with this letter saying, you've got to take all that stuff down because that's ours. And he had invested $22,000 in getting this all up and all the PR, everything. And he had to take it all down and start again. He was lucky he didn't have to pay for any profits that he had made because he had used someone else's mark. But that's another cost that you may not foresee. That could cost you tens of thousands of dollars on top of that. So, oh my goodness, you really have to be careful.
I love it. Thank you, Lin. I'm really enjoying this conversation with you because, as I said, I mean, throughout the journey of this show, we have touched on different topics. But this one that we are covering here with you, as I said early on during the intro, we're really talking about the foundations, and we're really talking about things that oftentimes are overlooked, because when we think about setting up a business or setting up a website, we think about all the kind of nice things, the quote unquote romantic side of being an entrepreneur or a business owner. And we don't think about these things. And as you said, sometimes that can lead to very big situations or problems or loss of money. And you made the difference, or you explained the difference between copyright and trademark. And you touched, during your comment, you touched on products and services. So when it comes to naming, maybe we can start from naming a business and then naming products and services. What advice do you have? I mean, you already hinted at something, so we shouldn't have named our business or a product in a way that is similar to another company or another website. Anything else?
There are ways that you can do a knockout search. I call it a knockout search, where you go on all the search engines, not just Google, but Bing, Yahoo, as many search engines as you can, and search for the name that you are thinking about using. So let's just say it's 360 Entrepreneur. Somebody wants to name their business the sexy 360 Entrepreneur, and they think, oh, that's a cool name because it's different from Jan's website. The problem is that, I would argue, would be confusing to anyone looking at that name. They'd think like, no, wait a minute. And it's funny because you may not think that it is similar, but just a few tweaks of the words, and if it is considered confusing or likely to confuse, then again, you're going to be in trouble. So really take a good hard look at all the search engines, and then you can go into your country's trademark search database. In the US, that's called TESS, TESS, or it's at the United States Trademark and Patent Office. And you can do a search on your own. And if anything comes up, then you know pretty much that, start from square one all over again. If nothing comes up, that just means that, whoa, so far so good. You've passed through, the knockout search part, and maybe there's some hope. And this is when you want to talk to an attorney. Trademark law is one area where I would say you need to hire an attorney because it gets complicated, and there are many, many databases, one in at least each state in the United States. And then, of course, the databases around the world in different countries. So this gets complicated and not something you would want to do on your own.
Right.
But you can do some work up front. And in my toolkit, I outline it for you, like all the steps that you can take so that you save yourself a bunch of time with a lawyer who could then say to you, oh, no, that won't work. It's already taken. Well, you could have figured that out yourself and saved yourself some money, right?
Right.
So that's trademark law. And the other area I should just mention, this is a little off topic, but in a partnership, if you're going to go into partnership with someone, that is not an agreement that you want to draw up yourself. Number one, you need a signed agreement by all the partners. And number two, you want that drafted by a lawyer, or you could even get started on that contract, but then take it to a lawyer and have him or her fill in the holes so that that thing is airtight and you're protected.
Love it. Thank you, Lin. You're really shedding light on things, and what I like about it is that you're not only shedding light, but you're also providing us with practical steps, things we can do. And you said it, obviously, when it comes to trademarks, for example, we have to do a search at different levels. So it can be at the state level if you're in the US, and then at national level. If you're in a different country, it may be at regional level first and then at national level. And then you said it, when we pass the knockout phase and we talk or we're about to tackle trademark, it's a good time that we may want to reach out to an attorney. And I want to ask your opinion, Lin, on a scenario, because some time ago, maybe like 6 months or something like that, I came across an article that is very interesting, and it's perfect for this conversation we're having, because there is somebody, I don't remember if she's a copywriter or somebody like that, who had a course of hers, and there was somebody else who literally stole the course. And so the victim of the situation, she wrote a blog post where she really kind of called out the copycat. She shared scenarios to show that, this isn't a coincidence, but it's really like, she had copied the concept, she had copied the font and this and that, and I'll make sure to link to that in the show notes. My question to you, Lin, is if somebody were to be in a similar situation, we see somebody who has clearly copied something of ours, can be an online course, it can be, a concept for a book or something like that. What would you say are maybe the first steps we should take?
Well, Jan, that's a scenario that I've heard so often. And that's the thing about the internet. Like it's almost like the wild, wild west, right? Things can just happen. And internet law is evolving around the world because the internet is still new. And so, those kinds of situations, they're tough because, man, it hurts when you see somebody has stolen your content, the material that you worked so hard to develop. And it always amazes me when somebody just lifts it outright, like cut and paste right into their website.
Literally.
It's like, you've got to be kidding me, right? But in that situation, hopefully you have at the very least put a copyright notice on your content. So whether it's like, it should be on your website and it should be in your products and services. Now, in the United States, at least, that's not required because as soon as you create something, you own the copyright to any original work. nobody can just take that without your permission. And yet people do it all the time. So at the very least, you want to give notice, because when you give notice, you sort of bolster up your argument that it's yours and people knew that it was yours and they took it anyway. So that goes in your favor. Whenever you can, you want to register that copyrighted material. And so you want to look into what, your country, what are the laws regarding copyright in the United States? You would register it with the Copyright Office. That gives you more protection. Once it's registered, now you have the backing of the Copyright Office, and that really gives you a leg, more than a leg, to stand on in court, because there's proof that it's yours and there will be damages and you can collect on damages. So 3 levels of copyright. First, you own copyright, but without giving notice, it's going to be harder to fight it. If you give notice, that's better, but registering your copyright is the best level of protection. If somebody steals your content outright, no matter whether it's registered or not, the first thing you want to do is send a letter, and you want to let them know that it is your copyright. It is your content. You want to give them the URLs on which that content exists on the website, so that you give them proof and you give them notice and you tell them to take it down. They have 24 hours or 2 weeks or whatever it is. You want to give them an immediate instruction to remove it. If they don't, your next course of action before hiring a lawyer would be to send what's called a DMCA takedown notice. And that's kind of like a scary thing. It's like, ooh, you don't want to ever receive one of those. So what happens is you let them know that you're going to send a DMCA takedown notice to the internet service provider that hosts the infringing website. That company must take down any infringing material. So if it's that whole website, they'll have to shut down the website until everything is corrected. And then failing that, then you would have to hire a lawyer. But the DMCA takedown notice is pretty powerful. And in my toolkit, I give you a letter that you can customize, but it's all there. Like, this is the letter you send. This is what you put in, fill in the blanks, and then send it off.
Awesome. Well, so you heard it again. I want to remind you, in the show notes, you're going to find Lin Eleoff's do-it-yourself toolkit that is going to help you make sure that you have everything covered. And it's interesting, Lin, that you talked about this aspect from a couple of different perspectives. And one thing I want to add, especially for digital products, is that there are certain, for example, a tool I use called SendOwl, that is a digital product delivery system. So it's what allows me to connect, for example, PayPal to a product, so that if I have an ebook that I sell and somebody pays using PayPal, then the owl makes the delivery, so the person gets the ebook. And I know that, for example, a service like SendOwl gives you the option, if you sell an ebook, to add a sort of digital stamp or print to your ebook. That, it's not that you have to do everything on your own. And if you're already using a similar system, check out, because it's likely that they have a similar feature and that can help you. And Lin, what would you say if we talk for a moment about affiliates?
Sure. What do you want to talk about?
Awesome. Because, when we think about products, services, we see it that affiliate marketing can be really powerful for promoting a product, or even for simply making money if one has already an engaged community and one has an audience that trusts our advice and so forth. So when it comes to affiliates and affiliates disclosures, do you have any advice? Do we even need a disclosure? And if yes, what should we include in it?
Well, yes, this is such a good topic to bring up, Jan. If you're doing, at least in the United States, if you're doing business in the United States, then advertising laws require that you make people aware that you are an affiliate. In other words, you have to let people know that if they click on your link, there is a tracking code on there that lets the product owner, assuming this is not your product, the product owner know that that came from you, and then you will receive a commission. You will be paid. We want to let buyers know all the information, and the law states that they are required to know that information so that they can make an informed decision. So that if you're saying, hey, buy this product, this is a really great product, I use it, it's amazing, click this link. Well, that's different from also saying, by the way, I'm an affiliate for this product, I'm going to be paid, so you can decide whether, what I'm saying about the product is sincere or not, right? Because people then will say, well, gee, I really trust Jan. I know that he wouldn't recommend it if he didn't really believe in it, even if he's making a commission off of it. I trust him, I'm going to click. But on some of the other websites, and you've seen this, where it just sounds like sleazy, smarmy. It's not even... right? And they don't disclose. And so you're thinking, oh, this must be great. And that is not the way you're supposed to do it. You must disclose to potential buyers your affiliation with that product and whether you are making this recommendation without being paid, that it's just something you're doing. You can let people know that. And of course, your credibility is affected by that. I mean, your credibility soars either way. So ethically and legally, you are required to disclose your potential bias.
Well, I mean, you heard it. Lin made it crystal clear. And there is one thing I want to add on this point, because I know that there may be somebody who's like, no, well, I don't know if people... Look, if you are transparent in what you do and you let people know that, hey, this is my affiliate link. And actually, Lin, what I usually do when I use an affiliate link, for example, in one of my online courses or something like that, I always say, and by the way, this is the name of the resource. If you want to use my affiliate link, this is the affiliate link. And I've had this happen a few times where I got email from people who told me, I was about to, let's say, buy this software, but then I remembered, yes, Jan has an affiliate link. So I didn't remember it at the top of my head. So I went back to your site and got the affiliate link. So a scenario like that really shows that if you are transparent and you promote something because you really believe it could help your community, your readers, your listeners, your viewers, some people are going to really appreciate you being honest with them. And in case they are about to purchase without your affiliate link, because from the customer perspective, it doesn't really make a difference, they're going to say, oh, okay, wait a second. Actually, I know that Lin, in the email she sent out last week, she mentioned her affiliate link. So let me go back and grab that. So I think it's something to really keep in mind. And Lin, we have been talking, we mentioned your toolkit. We talked about some of the things to keep in mind when it comes to protecting one's business. We talked about copyrights, trademarks, affiliates, and I have to ask you another question, Lin, because I'm sure there may be somebody who's a bit skeptical and he or she is like, well, Lin, Jan, is it really possible to do it yourself when it comes to this topic you're talking about? So, Lin, what would you say? Is it possible to really do it yourself?
Look, Jan, I know that people think of the law and all this legal stuff as really dense, boring, heavy, hard, difficult. But the way I lay it out is in such a way that it's like, okay, here's what you need to do. Here's how to do it. And then you go do it. So in that sense, it's not hard and it is possible. If someone were to just hand you one of the textbooks that my intellectual property textbook from law school, you wouldn't have a clue what to do. It is dense and it is kind of boring. I'll give you that. But I lay it out in a way that actually I think is empowering. It's like, this is information you should know just as a business owner, because knowledge is power, right? So the more you know, the more you are empowered to protect yourself. And I promise you, it's not boring, not the way I lay it out for you. And there are templates, there are checklists. So it's really hard to not be able to do this. I mean, it's that was a double negative. It's hard to not be able to do, sort of. Yeah, I would say, Jan, that this is not something that people cannot do themselves. And as I say, there are areas where I will tell you, this is not something to do yourself. You can get started. Here's the background information on it. But please take this to a lawyer once you get the framework up.
I love it. And yeah, I think you're so on point, Lin. And I think also something that sometimes makes us overlook some of the things we're talking about here is the fact that, as you said, this topic is perceived as boring, as difficult to understand, and these kind of things. So we are kind of ignorant when it comes to this. But obviously now, once we start to get advice from somebody like you, Lin, and then we get your toolkit, so we start to get a better understanding of what needs to be done and why, then it's going to be easier to take the necessary steps, whether it's something we can do by ourselves, like you said, research and these kind of things, or if it's something that we need help from a professional. And Lin, this has been such a fun interview. I want to, first of all, thank you for making what on paper could have been a quote unquote tough topic or boring topic into a very entertaining and an interesting one. So thank you for that.
Jan, it's been a pleasure. I love talking to you. You have made some excellent points too on this topic. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
It's my pleasure. And Lin, to wrap up this fantastic conversation, I have two quick questions for you. The first one is, can you tell everybody a little bit more about your site, coveryourassetsonline.com? I mean, the name is self-explanatory, but still, what can we find over at coveryourassetsonline.com?
So one of the things I have there, Jan, is what I call an exposure quiz, where you can take this quiz and it'll ask you certain questions. And depending on how many times you answer no, there are about 15 questions, I think, really easy to answer. And then how many no's you have, then that tells you how exposed you are. So I outline the very basic things that you need to have in place. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this have done some of those things, but I would bet that there are a lot of things still not checked off that list. So that's one of the things I have on the website. And then I have a lot of free content in my blog. I talk about all of the things we just talked about. And also that's where I offer the do-it-yourself legal toolkit. And actually, you can go straight to that at DIYlegaltoolkit.com. But I outline there all the different things that you will learn about and feel like, you can take charge.
Great. And you mentioned the link and you mentioned your blog. And actually, there are a couple of articles you've written that touched on some of the things we discussed today. So I'll make sure, once again, a quick reminder, I'll make sure to link to everything Lin and I have talked about in the show notes. And Lin, the final question I have for you is, if somebody has a question or would like to simply connect or say thank you, what would you say is the best way to do that?
You can find me through my website, sending me an email at lin@coveryourassetsonline.com, or you can find me on my Facebook page too. So shoot me a private message. It's not hard to find me, and I'd be happy to answer your questions or point you in the right direction.
Love it. Thank you. So you heard it, different ways to connect and learn from Lin Eleoff. And again, make sure to check out the show note page so you're gonna learn more about the toolkit, about her site, coveryourassetsonline.com, and everything else we've talked about here today on the 360 Entrepreneur. Lin, again, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time for being here and sharing your expertise.
Likewise, Jan, I really enjoyed talking to you. You asked all the right questions.
And we are back. Lin, thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise. And you heard it. Lin shared a couple of different resources. She mentioned the do-it-yourself legal toolkit that you find over at DIYlegaltoolkit.com. If that sounds complicated, just go to the show notes page so you find the link to that and everything else Lin and I have covered in this episode right there. This is it for today. Next week, we're going to look at a brand new topic, something we haven't really covered here on the podcast, and that is pitching. We're going to talk about how you can craft a pitch that seals the deal. This is it for this week. Thank you so much for making Lin and I part of your day. I really appreciate you. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. For more tips and tools, head over to www.janilunga.com.